from the 915 to H-Town, from the Panhandle Plains to the Valley, and everywhere in between. This is the 50/50 Podcast, powered by College Promoters USA. Join me, Hector Cano, as we cover the Texas high school club and college soccer landscape, along with an inside look at the college soccer recruiting scene. The 50/50 Podcast is a platform about the people and for the people who are dedicated to the beautiful game.
College Promoters USA, founded and located in San Antonio, operates as the only family-owned college recruiting company in Texas that brings a truly professional, local, and face-to-face approach to area high school student athletes and their families. If your son or daughter is serious about college athletics, call them at 210-494-6363 or visit collegepromotersusa.com anytime. College Promoters USA, the best investment a parent can make in their high school student athletes.
Here we go. It's another edition of the 50/50 Podcast, powered by College Promoters USA. Our proud partners, College Promoters USA. They are America's premier college prep program and high school student athlete marketing service since 1997. Located here in San Antonio, Texas. For those of you who are local, you can find them in the Ventura Plaza Shopping Center. You can also find them on social media on Twitter at SATX Recruiting. You can also find them on Instagram at College Promoters USA, and you can also find them on their website at collegepromotersusa.com. My next guest, a little bit of a history here for the 50/50 Podcast, as a groundbreaking episode today, as we have our very first coach who is standing up a brand new program and the very first coach in the history of Tarleton State, the Texans. He is Coach Pete Cuadrado. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Excited to have you here today. We appreciate your time. We're excited to kind of go in all kinds of directions here with you. This one was a little different because I was like, man, where do I begin? New program, all kinds of different things that we can ask. But then you also have to alter your questions a little bit because, it's not like you have the existing quote unquote assembly line already there, right? You're creating it. So, which is awesome, but it's also stuff that's kind of already unfolding and happening. So, all right, Coach. So before we dive in, we start asking you all kinds of questions. Give us just briefly for our listeners here, kind of where you've been and how you got here.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Texas. I was born in New Orleans, but grew up in Texas. So that's part of the appeal for this job is for me as well, selfishly. But I played at TCU way back in the day. When I got done there, I played a year in Chicago, semi-pro, got to a level where you realize you just can't make it anymore. And so thankfully, a coach that I had played for contacted me about working at Valparaiso and working on the women's side. And I went there, had a great experience, but it was part-time that I made full-time, obviously. I mean, that's kind of part of the profession, as you know. Then I got a full-time job at Illinois State, who was a very established top 25, top 50 program back when before I was there and when I was there. And so I had that opportunity. And then, one day I'd been there two and a half years. And one day the head coach comes in and says, "Hey, North Dakota State wants you to be their head coach." And my exact words were, "I'm not moving to North Dakota, no way." Famous last words, end up the head coach there. And then I'm telling myself, that's how it works, right? And then I tell myself, I'm going to be there 2, 3, 4 years, and I'm going to move south because I grew up in the South. And I met my wife there. She has her PhD in education, was a professor, and was there 9.5 years. Had a great experience. Honestly, I got into something better than I knew I was getting into when I took the job. And we had looked around a ton, but never thought I was leaving because she was born and raised there. And one day I came home and I told her Wyoming called, and she's like, "I love Wyoming." And no offense to anyone out there, but I was like, who says that? So I ended up interviewing in Wyoming, and to be honest, it was a great move for me. We took that job, and I was there another 9 years. And my wife called me and told me about this job, and I said, "Honey, they don't, they're starting a program, but they're D2." And then she called me back, and because we'd always kind of had a plan of moving back south. And she calls me back that same day and is like, "No, they're moving D1." And so that's where it all started. But it's been a great experience and definitely excited to be here. So it's just been a blast.
So it was the wife first informing you that they were making the move to D1. Is that right?
Correct, correct. I mean, I feel like she's my agent. She's definitely the brains
Hey,
of the operation.
yeah,
So,
there you go. There you go.
yes,
So, and I can't say I would agree with you. No offense, but having coached at the Air Force Academy in that same conference with Wyoming, I would probably have said the same thing as who says that regarding Wyoming. But yeah. So now for our listeners that may have kind of done that head nod there when you said that, break down for them. You said you played at TCU, right? So this younger generation, they're not going to be aware of that whatsoever. There's like, I thought they only had a women's program. So tell us,
that's true.
what was that like? What do you recall? Because I'm pretty sure you had to have been part of that last group, right?
Yeah, I started up where the track is now at the top of the hill for those that know campus. That used to be our soccer field back in the day. Again, I'm a little bit older. And that was 99, I believe we were, and I think we were in 3 different conferences when I was there. We're in the Mountain West, the WAC, and I believe Conference USA for maybe a year at the most. We bounced around quite a bit during my career. But yeah, my senior year, we got to move down to that lower field where it is today, where the women's program plays. And it was obviously a huge upgrade for us. And I graduated in 2000. I believe it was 2001 was their last season with the men's program.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was a great experience. I love my time there. I'm a proud alum. I'm still wearing purple, and I'm an hour away, so I get to follow them quite a bit. And Eric's a great guy and has done a great job with their program as well. And to this day, I don't want to play him ever again because I'm 1-0 against him. So I kind of want to keep my result and just walk away happy there because he's done such a good job.
Right. Well, and full disclosure for our listeners, I'm going to kind of let them peek behind the curtains here. You and I offline, we were talking about. I was telling them about how how a little bear looks in the office back there behind you, no trophies, right? And then I love the answer that you gave. It's like, hey, I don't want to put up old trophies. I'm here to win new ones. And let's see if maybe that 50-50 podcast good luck charm can help you out there, Coach. So because we tend to kind of rub off in a good way on people. So wish you the absolute best. Hopefully next time we have you on, you got some hardware back there behind you. So
I'm in. Let's do it.
All right. So, all right, Coach. So tell us in this time. So I know, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say it was June. You might need to check me on this, but June 23rd, 2021, somewhere right around there, you kind of go public with it, right? Obviously, there had already been a press release, but now, the website is up. The Twitter account is live. So from then to now, what have you found in terms of, plus your coaching staff, building your coaching staff as well? But you're starting it all from scratch, right? So there is no crop of incoming recruits. There is no group of existing players. So what have you found to be the hardest and also maybe the best part of starting a new program?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think the thing that's been hardest has also been the easiest part, the fact that we are new. Everything's new. Everything's brand new. Our facility's brand new. I mean, literally everything's brand new. So I think the best part about it is when we've contacted recruits, right away. They know right away. Do you want to be part of building something or do you not? And I think it's almost a lot more black and white than probably any other year that I've recruited, believe it or not. So, in fact, I'll never forget, we were sitting at dinner with the recruit and her family, and her dad played Division I men's soccer. And he said, you think you're going to win the conference your first year? And I'm like, probably not, was my exact answer. And I said, it's my goal. But I mean, we've got 16 freshmen signed. We've got right now 5 transfers, back then less. And unfortunately we have, roughly, as 10, maybe 14 days to get a team ready to play games. I mean, it's going to be, trial by fire and learning on the fly kind of thing as we're going through this whole process. I said, but you look at it as glass half empty or glass half full,
right.
And you don't take this job looking at it at the glass half empty. I told him, what's it going to look like a year down the road when players are playing together and we have consistency in our program? That's exciting to me. What's it look like with the president that's made an insane commitment to our athletic department, to supporting us, to getting us facilities, to getting us resources that we need to be successful, to putting us in the WAC. Everything that he's provided has been over the top. So it's been very fun. But when I started, I didn't know what type of recruits we'd get. I think today having 21 players signed with our program, it's better than I thought it would be at this point in this build. Having being able to hire an assistant already, again, is better than I thought it would be. Rex Carroll, my assistant, he started middle of July. So he finished up with a WPSL team in Omaha, and he made his way down here. I think he had a family trip planned a week later, and then he was here. So he flew straight from Jamaica to here. A great story about that is I pick him up at DFW Airport, drive him here. He takes a recruiting test. We drive back to the airport and fly to Surf Cup recruiting. So he said, anything I need to know? And I'm like, don't fail the test, because we already have plane tickets bought. So, and he aced it in his defense. So he did a great job. But that's been real helpful. I mean, getting off to a solid start in this build and having what we need has been really, really helpful, I think, in giving us a great leg up to do what we need to do going forward. I had some experience similarly, but different. When I took over North Dakota State, we'd announced we were going D1, but my first year we were still D2. So I've been through the transition, but again, I walked into a program that had 20 something players on roster. So that's different still, but a little bit of experience in that.
Yeah. So take us through that, maybe not the first day on the job, but maybe you're kind of trying to look, okay, where do I begin in terms of the recruiting, right? Because obviously you want to go in so many different directions simultaneously, but how did you come to formulate your plan in terms of just the recruiting direction, I guess?
Sure. I mean, I think the first hour I probably spent sitting in the corner crying, maybe like just overwhelmed,
Right.
After that, I think I came to my desk and honestly just sat down and started making a list. In this profession, your family doesn't get to move with you. I remember the first time I took a new job, we had made the decision, like as far as head coaching and with a family, with a wife, and now I have a 12-year-old daughter. But I came home and my wife was a professor, like I mentioned, and she said, "So did you turn in your 2 weeks today?" And I said, "No, honey, I'm leaving Friday," and this was Wednesday. And she was like, "What?" And thankfully I have a super supportive wife, and she's always been great at selling our house, packing the home, moving, taking care of our dog. I mean, all of that, and just saying, go get what you need to get done. So again, I came here and, I remember, I don't know what day or times it was, but you just make a list and you start grinding through that list. And there probably wasn't a day the first month I was here that I left before 8 or 9 at night. Thankfully I'm living about a block away in the dorms, which we have very nice dorms. I found out I was a little intimidated walking in, and then I'm like, oh, this is nice. So I'll plug that. We have beautiful dorms, but I mean, I didn't see the daylight for quite a few days, because that's how you have to tackle anything like that. That's overwhelming, is to start making lists and start at the top. And, I think when we got out recruiting, you're getting your name out really the first 2-3 months. There were a couple of, I would say, recruits that were interested in us right off the bat. Obviously, go check them out. And we got a few people signed there, starting to set up some ID camps. And we've run probably 400 plus student athletes through ID camps and signed some of those as well. Yeah. But really getting out and spreading the word. And once we started evaluating people, then it just became kind of old habits, really.
And you guys have done, I got to say, you all have done a great job collectively, you and Rex, I know, especially and on the social media front as well, just getting that word out there, being aggressive and kind of banging the drum and telling your story, which helps. It helps significantly. So you mentioned, 21 current players signed. Are any of them, is it maybe the transfers, any of them on campus already?
Yeah, good question. We asked the NCAA if we could scholarship people this spring. We're not allowed to, since we don't have a program. But we do have one on campus. She transferred in from SFA, from Stephen F. Austin, Macy Johnson, which has been interesting as well, because we also, right now we're doing a lot of individuals with her. She's lifting, she's conditioning, and literally a one-man show as far as, the work that she's putting in right now. And I already told her, I'm like, if you have a bad touch next fall, I'm like, you're not allowed to, because you spend so much time with Rex and I doing individual work, and she's getting an insane amount of touches every day on the ball. So, so she's not allowed to play poorly, have a bad game, have a bad touch. she's got to carry the load of what we've done this spring, because she's been getting after it. But one right now, and then quite a few obviously that'll be joining us.
Okay, no pressure on her, on the young lady, right?
At
So
all.
yeah, so how have you all talked about tackling your, maybe you're implementing, you're developing obviously the philosophy piece, the culture, team culture implementation, which is probably, you're kind of at the advantage of, what's coming in, but you kind of have the time to, I guess, hone that, tweak that a little bit and get it ready along with the core values. How have you all tackled that in anticipation of what you have coming in?
Well, it's a two-part thing, right? Some of it's going to be my history of what I've done, that I've seen work, that I've had success with, and some of those are like you said, the core values and things like that. But I had a dad ask me, like, why have I been successful? And to be honest, a lot of that is you hold people accountable, you set high standards, and really there's no shortcut for the work and for the grind of it day in, day out. And then the other piece of that is recruiting. I think we put in the time and energy, as you mentioned, to recruiting. I think we're out a lot right now, all over the country, even into Canada. I mean, we'll be in Canada next month as well, hitting those connections, and then also when it comes to recruiting the right people. There's fits for programs, and thankfully I've been a D1 head coach for 18, 19 seasons. I've done a lot of homework, and the student athletes we have transferring in, I trust they're good people and good players both. And I think that's important. As you mentioned, I don't think you can make a mistake on that when you're trying to build the culture, and I feel good about the group we have, the incoming freshmen. I think we have a lot of good people that'll really set a tone for what we want to do in the classroom, for what we want to do off the field, and what we want to do on the field. And I do believe if you get responsible young adults off the field, that translates to on the field. Because there's times where we may not be prepared for what another team throws at us. One thing I always remind our team is the other team has coaches too, and don't forget that. So they're trying to figure out ways to beat us just as much as we're trying to figure that out. And at times we have to change things on the fly, or adjust on the fly, or make tweaks, and if you can handle that stuff off the field, it's not that big a deal on the field. And I like the group we have. I really do. I think it's going to be enjoyable to coach them. I think Tarleton was their first choices for those 21 student athletes that are coming in.
Awesome. Now when you're the new guy, right, it's already hard enough in terms of being on the recruiting trail and trying to ensure that you're trying to find, like, you can attest to the right fit in terms of you as a coach, your coaching staff, and your program. But as you're trying to get to know these young student athletes, in terms of ensuring that your institution is obviously academically the right fit, socially the right fit for them, it's already hard enough when you're the new guy, right? The new coaching staff. Now, did you find it to be even harder with the fact that it's from scratch? You're standing up the program completely, or as far as being able to ascertain what's the right fit here for everybody?
Yeah, I don't think so as much. I think our university really does sell itself, and I know every coach says that, but it's what attracted me here. What I'm selling to recruits is why I came here. Honestly, I won't say where, but I've talked to quite a few schools in the state of Texas or across the South in the past in my career, and it wasn't the right fit for me. And what sold me on this place is, we're one of the fastest growing schools in the country. Our funding is there. We have competitive people that want to win. I work for unbelievable people. I can go sit in my boss's office and vent, or I can also go sit in there and tell him, hey, this is what we need. And he's like, let me work on it. And 99% of the time so far, it's been like, this is how we're going to get there. So, it's been a fun experience for me. And our dorms are amazing. Our new facility is amazing. I mean, I texted to friends of mine pictures that are sitting D1 head coaches, and they're like, I can't use some of the language they've responded within text messages, but they're like, that's amazing. That's unbelievable for a first-year program. So what we have, I think, shows in the commitment level that we're making. And you look across the board, our sports, our football team had the highest attendance in WAC history at one of the games this year, or this year, maybe. I think it was for this past season in the WAC. And we're expanding our stadium starting this summer. Baseball, softball have a ton of renovations done. Tennis looks great. Basketball, we're building a new facility. it's pretty unbelievable of what's happening here. So that, and the whole university is going through that same expansion. And I jokingly say everybody and their brother is going to want to be here in 2-3 years. They really will. And so when people come, they see that, and I think that helps kind of cross that bridge. Again, it's been exciting for me. It's been fun. Everything's brand new. I mean, right now we're ordering shoes for next year and gear. And, I make a joke with our Nike rep, like, hey, if we don't get it by August 1st, we can't use last year's stuff, So
I'm a size 11 coach, in case you're wondering.
Yeah, exactly. So there's plenty of those. It's always the women's sizes from like 7 to 10 that there's never any. So, but again, it's exciting. And I think that's been my attitude going through this entire thing. It's the attitude of everybody in the department. And it's just fun to be a part of it, really.
Yeah. I remember, it's funny when I think of Tarleton, I remember having this conversation with my wife back in 2014. I was still active duty, had just left the Air Force Academy, was stationed at Dyess Air Force Base there in Abilene. And, we're looking at schools in the area, different programs. And I remember her asking me specifically about Tarleton, right? And she asked me, it's like, well, why don't they have a women's soccer program? And I just, I had no response for that. I was just like, that's a great question. Because at the time, obviously they were D2 as well. And the conference, very highly competitive D2 conference. So I can definitely attest that I've seen that growth just from then to now, and just the ambition of the school, not just the athletic department, but the school. So yeah, I can attest to that. So that's definitely kudos to everybody there.
And I went through the same thing. I mean, when I first got down here, one of the first things I did is I was real good friends with the last Baylor staff, Paul and Chuck and all those guys, because they're all Chicago guys. And, I got to spend a little bit of time playing in Chicago. And I went down into their ID camp. And I remember we were sitting in between sessions, and Paul said, so what's the hardest thing? And I said, just telling people Tarleton has a program and telling people the story of Tarleton and all that stuff. And I was like, people don't know Tarleton.
Right.
Because we live in a soccer world. And I remember Paul looking at me and he goes, Pete, people know Tarleton around here. And I was like, and that kind of gave me like, all right, we're going to be okay here. And I'll never forget that. And he probably doesn't remember it. But just the fact that he was dead sold on people know it. And that's what I found to be very true. And obviously I've been gone for 18 years. But yeah, it's been, you get out there and people are excited. It's amazing how many people stop me when we're out recruiting.
Yeah, and for our listeners, Coach, not just across the state, but we have listeners across the country as well. Tell us a little bit. Just first of all, tell us, where's Tarleton located? Kind of give us a visual on the map here.
Yeah, we're about an hour southwest of Fort Worth, probably west south if you want to go that way. Of Fort Worth, it takes me about an hour to get into Fort Worth. So, what is it? 20 miles. If you go straight north, 20 miles. You run into the major freeway that goes into Dallas-Fort Worth. So, but yeah, we're about an hour outside of Fort Worth.
Okay. And so for our, whether it be parents, prospective student athletes, whatever, right? Other coaches, they want to know about more, you're talking about that hardest part about just, why Tarleton? What's Tarleton about? What should they know, and why should they consider Tarleton State?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One, it's a quality education, and our education levels are only getting better. All of our degrees are getting better and better day by day. And again, they weren't poor to start off with, but this school is booming. When most universities are going through, they're just trying to hang on to get through what we've gone through as a world the last couple of years. Tarleton's booming in that environment, which has been amazing. And two, we're in a small community. I mean, roughly 40,000 people. That just bleed purple. It's a sports town. It's a safe town. It takes me 7 minutes to get to work, which I love. I joke, if you forget your cell phone, you go home and get it. I don't worry about the safety of my wife or my daughter. And again, we're a highly competitive athletic program. You're in a city where everyone cares about our university. They have this thing here called Purple Thursdays. The entire city, including people at Walmart, are wearing purple. It's awesome. I mean, you go out and you bring a recruit in and they're like, the whole town's wearing purple. And then you tell them the story. And then the last thing I'll tell you, and this is something that I've learned in my short 6 months here, we have some of the coolest traditions you've ever seen. We have something called the Purple Poo, which is the oldest secret spirit organization in the country. And I don't know if you know anything about it, but please Google it. It's called the Purple Poo. You can Google it.
Purple Poo, is that it?
P-O-O, Purple Poo.
P-O-O, okay.
Yep. And so there's 10 of them, and it's a secret organization. And I asked, like, when I was on my interview, they're telling me about this, and I'm like, people have to know who they are. And they're like, no one knows who they are. They dress head to toe. It's a big secret. They show up to all the sporting events. They're the spirit group. They bring signs. They talk in a weird language, but they lead the student chants. They do all kinds of crazy stuff. They're everywhere on campus, and they're celebs. They show up, and there's a line to take pictures with them, including my daughter. And they're at everything we do. It's going to be amazing. They'll be at our first game. I promise you that next fall. And I mean, we have some of the neat traditions like that you just don't see at a lot of places. And it's really neat. We have the largest bonfire in the state of Texas, which I got to attend. It was amazing.
That one I was aware of. That's awesome.
It's unbelievable. I mean, and what's really cool is I had a recruit in with her family, and her dad's a firefighter, and he said, I've never seen like 5,000 students just all acting great at this whole event at 10 o'clock at night, and they're lighting a 3-story fire up in the air, and I mean you can see it from miles and miles everywhere in the city. So I mean it's just a really neat campus environment. I can tell you this, I chose this job. I had a great job at the University of Wyoming. I was well taken care of there, facilities, resources, you name it. A very competitive conference, as you know. I mean, the Mountain West is a tough conference.
Absolutely.
This has been a blast. I'm super excited for what the future here holds. It's going to take time to build this. I know that. But I'll tell you right now, our goal next fall is to win the conference championship, win the WAC championship, just like every other year will be. And if we continually do that, then we'll raise the bar. But yeah, we're headed in the right direction. I can tell you that.
Thoughts on playing in the WAC?
It's exciting. I always said if I could move Laramie, Wyoming to Texas, that would be my dream job. And I feel like that's what we did. I love the travel. I love going to see new places in different areas of the country, and the WAC has that. We go all the way from California to Seattle to, Chicago will be out next year, but we're picking up the 6, we have 6 schools in Texas, and then you go to New Mexico, Utah, all over the place.
Are you all now the furthest east, the most eastern team in the WAC, or what will be the WAC?
I think it would be either SFA or Lamar would be the two furthest east. So, but again, we're close, but next fall we'll have 6 teams in the state of Texas. So there'll be a lot of easy trips, but there's also, we're going to get on a plane and fly and go see different areas of the country, which is fun for kids. It's fun for coaches too. Let's be honest. Those are where you make your memories and things like that. So I'm excited, but people don't realize this. I mean, we had 4 teams, I think with a week left in the season, in the top 100 RPI. So, I mean, it's a very good conference. It's a competitive conference, and the top is good. Those are good teams that are competitive. You look at some of the results. Grand Canyon beat Arizona. Seattle tied Santa Clara, who was defending national champs early in the year. So again, there's some pretty nice results in there that our conference has had. So it'll be a challenge, that's for sure, to get up to the top. But I think we're ready for it, and I think we'll get there. I really do. I have faith, and I'll brag a little bit. I've won a conference championship at every school I've been at as a coach. In some places that are tough that people don't expect to win. Before North Dakota State became 12 or whatever time football champs and all that, we were trying to make it in D1, and we won a couple regular seasons and a conference tournament championship, and went to win tied A&M in the national tournament in the first round, which I take full responsibility. We were 1-1. We go to PKs. We were actually up 3-1 in penalty kicks, and it's very hard to lose when you're up 3-1. And I turned to my associate head coach and I said, "We're going to win this thing." And he just gave me the dirtiest look, and I was like,
"Oh yeah."
And of course, we lost in the 6th round. So, so that one's my fault. But again, people don't expect Wyoming to win conference championships, especially in women's soccer, and we were able to do that with the group that we had there. So I feel confident in what we'll do here and what we'll build.
Yeah. So I know you. So you talked about the 21, right? Or is there maybe 1 or 2 or 3 maybe that you can kind of highlight from this recruiting class in particular? Just kind of share with us what has you and the coaching staff excited? Obviously all of them, but maybe a couple that you can kind of highlight.
Yeah, worst question you can take as a coach. I'll tell you right now.
I know.
You know, honestly, I think there's groupings of recruits, and I will say this: I think the group that committed right away, I have a special place for them because they're coming when I didn't know much about Tarleton, and I'm learning. And we're driving through campus on the little golf carts, and I'm like, I have no idea what building that is. And you know, I feel so much more versed now. So I have a special place for that group because they truly bought in, and they were like, "This is where we want to be."
Yeah, giving that very first tour must have been fun, right?
Well, thankfully, Mackenzie Griffith grew up in Stephenville, so she was giving me the tour. If you want me to be honest with you, so that I appreciated that from her. You know, but we had that group, and then you know, after we got back from Surf Cup, there was quite a few from California. There was a group from Colorado that I already had some ties to. You know, and those are people that are choosing us and coming across the country. Choosing us. So again, those are great recruits for us to get. You know, some chose us over some pretty good offers out there and some pretty good schools out there in the soccer landscape. You know, and then you look at the transfers, and those are student athletes that they've seen other places. And again, we still have building to do. You know, if you look at our facility right now, they're going to, you know, we're a year away from building a building that's going to have our locker room and all those types of things. So again, those are transfers that probably already have it, you know, that may only get half of their time or 1 year or 2 years in that new facility. Obviously, we get a new field and all those amenities, but again, they're giving us that, and I think that's pretty cool too as well. You know, I know around here everybody's excited with the transfers, and truly, I think they're going to be the leaders of our program. You know, and they're going to have a heavy weight to lift when they come in. When you have 16 freshmen, we got to make them grow up fairly quickly.
Right.
And you know, and we're going to put a lot of responsibility on those student athletes that are transferring in. So all of them, you know, I respect because I told them that when I recruited them. You know, you're going to be leaders here whether you like it or not. You're going to be leaders here whether you were or not in your last program. So I have a great deal of respect for them, and I think they're bought into that vision of what we want to do and where we want to go. You know, and to be honest, I don't like anything lacking in our program. You know, we were always top 2 in community service. We were always top 2, maybe 3 in GPA at Wyoming within the different department or different sports teams there. So, you know, and to be honest, we were always top 2 or 3 in results, I felt like. So that's something I want to continue. And you know, we gotta catch up a little bit because some of the other sports are really, really kicking some butt right now. So I'm proud of them, but you know, I'm like, slow down, give us a chance to get a team here and get going. So, so I want to catch up and pull our weight in what's happening here.
So I'm not going to let you off that easy, Coach. So I love that answer, though. I appreciate that. But how about this? Can you highlight for us maybe the very first recruit in Tarleton State history? How about that? The very first commit. How about that?
Sure. It was Mackenzie Griffith from Houston, plays for Challenge down there, and she was born and raised here in Stephenville, like I said. So she was recruiting me before I even moved here, which was pretty hard to do because I think I accepted it, and maybe a week later, maybe 5 days later, I was here. You know, so obviously got out to see her play, and you know, we got her wrapped up fairly quickly. But again, like I said, I mean, she was somebody that was telling me kind of histories of Stephenville. Thankfully, her dad's a high school football coach, so he's had some interactions with the football program and follows the athletic side of it very well. And yeah, and they've versed me for at least a couple of weeks on what's going on here and how things work. So I definitely appreciate that. Yeah.
Was she the one that brought you up to speed on the purple poo, or was that from the staff maybe?
Well, funny story. Okay, so one of our administrators, when I was interviewing, he was showing me around campus, and there's actually a road called Purple Poo Way that runs through campus. And so he's telling me the story of Purple Poo and all that stuff, and I'm dying laughing. And then he tells me, like, with a straight face, I married a poo. And I'm like, come on, you can't say that and expect me not to laugh. I'm like, you know, because when you're on the outsider looking in, I mean, it's funny. That's just the way it is.
Right. So, yeah, absolutely.
But no, most of them are, I mean, we take it real serious here now. So, but I get it if you're laughing, and it's great.
Hey, it sounds like my kind of place. Well, I can tell you right now, if you're ever in San Antonio and you're visiting at my school, you'll blend right in with that purple, white, and black, because those are our colors. So you're welcomed anytime, Coach. So, all right.
Hey, I love the purple, and I'll tell you, I got stories for everything.
No, go ahead.
So I come down, and my wife and I, we got a little place on North Padre Island. And my parents are down in Haloti, so they're not far from you.
Oh, okay.
And anyway, I come down, I interview, and you know how it is. You fly in, you fly out. You're only here roughly 24 hours. And I get home, and I'm putting my daughter to bed. And my daughter never talks soccer. She wants to follow mom's footsteps. Mom was a cheerleader and dance and things like that. And my daughter, after we said prayers, she asked the most random question. She said, "Dad, what color was your school when you played?" And I said, "We were purple. Why?" And she said, "You really need to get to a purple school." And I was like,
Wow.
I think I interviewed on a Tuesday. I put her to bed on Wednesday, and Thursday I was offered the job. So honestly, it was a pretty amazing experience.
Meant to be, huh? Meant to be.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
He is Pete Cuadrado, head women's soccer coach, Tarleton State. So, Coach, you've talked. I know you guys have been very busy on the recruiting trail, obviously, and definitely showcases on the recruiting front on the club side. Kind of wanted to get your thoughts. Every college coach that I've been interviewing as of late that we've had on the podcast, I've asked them on their thoughts, because it's a big part of this podcast is Texas high school soccer, right? Their thoughts on that, their engagement level on that, or their thoughts in wanting to try to recruit that on some level. I get the showcase front, I get the club front, and because time is limited for all coaches, not just college coaches, but just kind of wanted to gauge your thoughts on Texas high school soccer.
Yeah, I think it's strong. You know, believe it or not, up at Wyoming, we had a student athlete, a goalkeeper from Allie Mills, who was South Lake Carroll, won a high school state championship. I watched a ton of her high school video. Obviously got to see her play at the club level too. You know, but with a goalkeeper, sometimes you can show up to a game and they may touch the ball 4 or 5 times and everything's routine. You know, so we spent a lot of time there watching South Lake Carroll because we were working with Allie. So I have a little bit of experience with that. And right now, Stephenville High School is ranked #1 in state, I believe, in 4A. So have a lot of experience, obviously going to see them as many times as we can. We are limited with the rules, but we'll max out our evals with those student athletes. So I think it's very strong. You know, I think it's very strong. It's obviously a lot of times you're going to see the hotbeds, you know, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, the bigger cities, you know, usually have some hotbeds, but you can always find some diamonds in the rough or some sleepers out there, as I call them too, as well. And if you look at our recruiting class, you know, we've got student athletes from all over the place in the state of Texas. So it's impressive. It's something we'll never overlook. You know, you'll probably see us at every high school state tournament, you know, round of 8, hopefully going forward. I know there's a couple other big events at that time too as well. But I don't underestimate it. It's something that we've always done. When I was at Wyoming, we were at the Colorado State tournaments all the time. When I was at North Dakota State, Minnesota's a big hotbed there. We were at the Minneapolis State or Minnesota State Championships all the time. I don't think there's a year I've ever missed those. So we'll put in our time with that too as well. Obviously, the 2 most limited resources we have are time and money. You know, and the time is really the bigger issue with it, and the fact that there's only 2 of us right now, which is great, but there's still only 2 of us trying to cover a lot of ground right now. So, and believe it or not, I mean, even turning to 23s, and I feel like we're a little behind in that right now, and we've turned the page in that, kind of wrapping up our 2022s and hitting our 23s. So it's a never-ending thing. But I'll tell you this: I mean, some of my best players came from smaller cities, and you know, actually, the girl that scored the goal in the 1-1 tie with A&M didn't play for a main club out of Minnesota, and we picked her up out of a high school team, and she scored a great goal her senior year against, you know, Texas A&M in the first round of the national tournament, and I believe that was the U23 national team keeper in goal, and she scored from 20 yards out. So, I mean, again, wherever there's a good player, I mean, we'll do our best to find them, and you know, if obviously we start with tape, but from there we try to make it out and see them play in person.
Yeah. And and that's kind of why I asked that too, is because you kind of sit there in a nice little kind of mini hotbed right there, right where you are, and right around you, in terms of just these, right. So I know you know that, but you know, one of the big charges in terms of the podcast is trying to facilitate and help kind of, you know, help champion those relationships for between high school coaches as well and college coaches, and high school coaches, doing our job on our end as far as advocating for for our athletes, for our student athletes, and being able to reach out to coaches as well. So yeah, no, I'm glad to hear. And that's one of the things I also mentioned, that because over the course of the pandemic, I've noticed that so many more, contrary to the myth, I guess, right, or the wide held belief or opinion, whatever you want to call it, that just college coaches don't recruit high school, right? They're not at high school games. Over the course of the pandemic, you've really seen what I would call a resurgence, for lack of better words. But they're out there. They're out there, and I harp on that, so this way student athletes and parents can understand that you do have college coaches that are putting in that work.
Well, and believe it or not, even if we're not at your game, we're watching the tapes when we get it, and that's, yeah, there's sometimes we'll watch a tape and say, no, and we're not going to go to that game. But there's times where we watch a tape and the student athlete looks great. You do some homework, her stats are good. Maybe she's an all conference or all area player. We're going to do our best to get out and see those student athletes play. I think a great way to start is tape, but I'll tell you this too. We've seen all 21 of those student athletes that have signed with us. We've seen them all play in person, So, and again, there's so many camps, there's so many clinics, there's so many ID things, there's so many high school. I mean, there's a million ways to be seen. There really is. Yeah. And again, it does start that way. The other thing that we have to be careful that I've noticed, and I don't know if people have told you this or not, but I warned Rex when he first started with us, is a lot of tapes too. You can see that they've taken the speed of the tape when they send it to you and turn it up a little bit. And when the ball's bouncing like that really fast, you can kind of figure out like, okay, people are messing with the tapes too as well. Yeah. And we've started to see a lot more of that over COVID as well, believe it or not. Okay. That's why we want to see them play in person. But again, it's a great way to start at least.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we start transitioning here, Coach, what can we expect from Tarleton State this fall in year one?
I think we'll compete. We won't be the deepest team in the country, I'll tell you that. But I want to be competitive in every game. I don't care if we're playing the best team on our schedule, maybe the least ranked team on our schedule. I want to be competitive in every game. And if you're competitive in every game, you're going to win some of those games. My style, I guess, if you want to call it that, every recruit asks that, what's your philosophy style? Is whatever we need to do to win the game is what we're going to do. If that means change formation, if that means change how we're playing, I'm a big EPL fan. Arsenal's my team. And I remember.
Thank you for joining us on the 50/50 podcast, Coach. It's been great having you on. Thank you. That's an ender right to Arsenal. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No,
and it's okay because Rex is a Crystal Palace fan, and I've never met anyone that is a Crystal Palace fan. There's
an honest man right there.
And today they tied Man City. So I saw
that. I actually. It's funny you mentioned that because I actually, about maybe 10 minutes before we jumped on, I text that to my office mate, who's our assistant AD and head baseball coach. He's an Arsenal guy. So I send him the 4-minute, the 4-minute clip of that with Man City, just because you got Liverpool and Arsenal, coming up, and I'm a Liverpool guy. So I said, things just got interesting here. So. No, I'm sorry. Anyway, go continue, Coach. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. For me, really, the way we'll play is whatever it's going to take to win the game. And I'll tell a story. I mean, I'm a storyteller, but and I won't use the name of the team. But we played a team. We beat them 2-0 my second year at Wyoming. I think it was my second year. It might have been my first. But anyway, we beat them 2-0 in the regular season. We go play them in the conference tournament 2 weeks later, and it was super easy tactics, right? 4-3-3 versus 4-3-3. Not a whole lot of real complicated stuff for our teams. And we turn around, we play them in the conference tournament, and they came out in a 3-6-1. I've never seen it before. I've never seen it since then. A box midfield, 2 wide midfielders, but kind of tucked in. And we're trying to play pretty soccer through the midfield. And I'm constantly just yelling at our team, serve the ball over the top. Like, we're 3v3, quit trying to play pretty soccer. And to be honest, they should have been beating us at halftime. We got lucky that we got out of the half 0-0. And I kind of laid into our team a little bit at halftime. Like, if you can't adjust, we're done. We might as well go home today. This game's going to end with them beating us. And thankfully, And literally, I'm like, here's your tactics: kick the ball far and high, and we're gonna get on the end of something. We'll play 3v3 all day up top, but we got to get them the ball.
Right.
And thankfully, 10 minutes into the second half, we're up 2-0. We win the game 2-0. So whatever the tactics take. Another quick story: we come down to play Baylor. Since we're in Texas, I can tell this story. And since Paul's not there anymore, I can tell you this too. But I remember, I think at the time they were ranked 8th in the country. And I'm like, we're going to take a bunch, and as you know, living in the mountains, we're going to take a bunch of mountain girls that have never seen 100-degree temperatures, go play in Waco, Texas in August against the 8th ranked team.
Yeah.
In August.
Yeah.
And after we scouted all the tape, my whole staff agreed the best thing for us to do is to switch to a 3-4-3 to try to stop Baylor. And I'm like, we're going to go do that in 100-and-some-degree heat with girls that have no idea what's about to hit them, and against a top 10 team in the country. And long story short, it was my longest Tuesday tactics meeting with my staff before training that week. So anyway, we agreed we're going there to win. We're not going there to bunker and lose 1-0 or 2-0. And I'll skip ahead. In warmups, I sit down on the bench, and I like to sit between my assistants because I just like to hear the chatter. And I whispered to one of my assistants, we're either going to give up 7 goals today or we're going to win this damn thing. Sorry. And long story short, we lost in double overtime, but our best player, who was an All-American at Colorado, transferred in, high school All-American, had as a breakaway, and their keeper made a huge one-on-one save.
Oh.
And we were there, but we were there to win the game. And to be honest, even as a coach, I learned a lot that day. And that was my 12th, 10th year as a head coach. And we used that as a springboard for that season about, one, look what we did. 2, sometimes you just got to trust what you know is right as a coach and as players and all that. Because our players were like, why didn't we just stick with what, and we're going, they're not dumb. They're like, we're going to go play in 100-degree heat against a top 10 team with 3 in the back. So again, that's my style. Whatever it takes to win the game. I mean, I've played 5 backs. I prefer a 4-3-3. I would love to do that, but whatever the game needs is what we're going to do. And again, as an Arsenal fan, I've seen them play 3 different systems in 8 days. And I think that is the professional way. It's our job to do the tactics. It's their job to execute. It's our job to teach them and work with them to make sure, answer the questions and get them there as much as we can. But I mean, I'm not going to change something that isn't broken, and I've been successful doing it that way.
Yeah, awesome. All right, final question here, Coach, before we wrap up our first segment. Going to put you on the spot here. So finish this sentence. The 2022 season will be a success if.
Ooh, that's a good one. I've never even thought of that. I want to see a constant improvement. I want to see us competing every single game, competing and improving. And I think if we can do that, I think that will be a successful season for us. And I think we'll win a lot of games. I really do. I think we'll surprise some people. I'm excited. I know we got to stay healthy. We don't have a ton of depth, as I mentioned. I'm trying to keep our roster small this first year because we need to grow as we go as well. So that's on purpose. It'll be a bigger roster in 23. But yeah, I think if we're consistently improving on the field and our effort is consistently there and battling every single game, we're going to be in games and we're going to win some games, and the only thing that, I always say excuses are for the losing team. We can use it as an excuse, that we're a first-year program or all this stuff. But guess what? If we win a game, we're not going to be saying it. So why can't we compete in every game? And why can't we surprise some people? And why can't we finish wherever we want to finish in the table? I think those are goals that we should have. And from there we'll adjust as we go. We'll adjust as we go and as necessary. But shoot, why can't we win a ring our first year? That's how they make movies in Hollywood, and 90% of them are based off of true stories. So why can't we tell that story?
Right.
So
awesome. All right, Coach. Well, hey, stick around. I know you're gonna be right back with us after this break. We get to pick on you a little bit, have some fun, ask you some random off the wall questions. And for our listeners, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
College Promoters USA, founded and located in San Antonio, operates as the only family-owned college recruiting company in Texas that brings a truly professional, local, and face-to-face approach to area high school student athletes and their families. If your son or daughter is serious about college athletics, call them at 210-494-6363 or visit collegepromotersusa.com anytime. College Promoters USA, the best investment a parent can make in their high school student athletes.
All right, and we're back with Coach Pete Cuadrado, the head women's soccer coach at Tarleton State. All right, Coach, it is counterattack time. We get to have some fun. I know we didn't prep you whatsoever, so you have no idea what's coming. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right, that's what I like to hear. All right, so these apply to you again as a coach, not as a player. Okay, so any training session or really game day superstitions or rituals?
I always say a prayer during the national anthem. That's probably a big one. I think that's really it. Yeah, that's probably it. Oh, and then we have our little books that we write our notes in and stuff. Yeah. I usually write KIP at the top, just keep it positive for myself more than anything.
All right. Awesome. Those wouldn't happen to be Duke brand books, would they, by chance? Just a plug there. Shameless plug.
They might be. I've probably bounced around. Usually, whatever I get free at these tournaments, I just try to use them. So
there you go. I was about to say, I figure Rex is probably all over that one for you. So yeah. So all right. So next one, strangest thing in your refrigerator right now.
Strangest thing in there. Boy, I don't have a ton of strange. My wife eats super healthy. I do when I'm in town, but on the road I do not. Shoot, great question. Yeah, I got nothing. Lemon juice, lime juice, probably some pancakes in a Ziploc that we made.
All right.
Yeah, we're pretty plain when it comes to food.
Okay. All right. Last book you read.
Lots of healthy food due to my wife.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. No, not a problem there. Last book you read or book you are currently reading?
My favorite book is the Carolina Way. I've read that multiple times. Dean Smith book. The last one I read front to back is Jeff Jansen's The Captain's Guide to Leadership. Usually do that with the captains, try to kind of make them. Every couple of years we'll go through that one. I think that's a really good one. And then I just started one. Shoot, let me see what the name of it is. Sorry. I don't think you're supposed to do this on a podcast.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. That's why we ask.
The Bill Walsh one. I got given this one and I just started it. Okay. So the score takes care of itself.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. There you go. All right. All right. So you kind of outed yourself. I might know where you might be going with this when you outed yourself on your favorite team, but I like to ask, I like to change it up a little bit. Your least favorite soccer team.
Oh gosh, Man United. It's like it's like the New York Yankees, and all these people that are like, that's my favorite team. It's like, come on, you can't pick them. It's like betting on Tom Brady. Oh yeah, real big bet. You know what I mean? It's
just when I had given up on you with the Arsenal piece, you redeemed yourself, Coach. That's awesome. Yeah, I agree. You're preaching to the choir on that one. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what's the shirt say? My two favorite teams are Arsenal and whoever's playing Man U.
There you go. I thought maybe you might go, that Tottenham route, maybe.
I know, but I get it. It's Man U. I've had too many assistants in the past that are Man U fans, and of course, 90% of the time they finish ahead of us in the table, and I just can't handle it. They are the New York Yankees of soccer.
Right, so. Right. Okay, so next one. This one's a little deeper here. You are appointed the soccer czar in America, okay, today. And tomorrow, what is the first agenda item that you would change in soccer in America? First thing you would change tomorrow?
The pay-for-play model. I wish it wasn't the way it is. I wish every level was free at the youth level. I wish there was not those boundaries. I know on the boys, men's side, they're getting to a lot of these free academies. I think that's awesome. I wish there was a way to do that on the women's side. It's a shame that families spend so much money, and maybe I'm not supposed to say this, but spend that, for soccer. It's an expensive sport to play, and it shouldn't be that way. I would, that'd be the one thing I would change if I had my way.
I'll never forget one of my instructors. I won't mention his name, but when I was going through, I believe, oh man, I can't remember if it was the national youth or my C license at the time. But I'll never forget when this came up and we are talking about how in this country, how we've taken one of the sports that's the least expensive to play and we've made it one of the most expensive to play. So that has always stuck with me. That has always.
I don't get invited to do a lot of college talks because at one of them, I flat out told somebody that was asking the question. I said, look, if you want a full ride, take every dime that you would have spent on soccer, cleats, insurance, hotels. And my mom did it. So I'm a victim of it as well, or whatever. I'm a contributor of it. Hotels, fees, this, that, everything. I mean, medical bills, and throw it in an interest-bearing account when your kid's about 5 years old. Yeah. And you'll be able to afford probably 40%, 50% of the schools in the country. Yeah. So that I wish we could find a way to change it. I really do.
Yeah. Okay. Who would play you in a movie?
I say Matthew McConaughey, and hopefully it's that movie I was talking about earlier, where a first-year program goes on, wins conference, national championship. I'll take that movie. I would love it. And I think the only reason I say him is because I know my wife thinks he's super hot. So actually the old Matthew McConaughey, not the new one, apparently, as I've been corrected a few times. Right. Yes, I'd go that route.
Okay. Bucket list destination, place you and the family want to go before it's all said and done.
Yeah, I've been super blessed. Been to Europe, done that. Recruiting. I've been to Portugal, the Algarve Cup with the women's national team, and Italy in that area. I've been to Australia more times than I could count recruiting. I've been blessed all those ways. The one area of the world I've really never been to is Asia, and I would love to see some of those countries, especially the ones on the southern coast. I think that would be really cool. There's a guy here that was in the military and was on a boat that went to Dubai and some cool places like that I think would be really neat to visit. So awesome. Somewhere in that area. I don't really have one specific picked out.
Right. Yeah. When I think of Asia, I think was it Thailand, southern Thailand. I think of that area where you're familiar with the story of Panyi FC, the group that were playing. They basically built their field on a raft almost. Yeah, that's like a place I would love to see. All right. So, in 3 words, why did you become a coach? You could boil that down to 3 words.
I would say competitiveness, super competitive. I would say team, love being a part of a team. And I would say college life. I love the college lifestyle. I love being a part of, when you're in college, you're a part of this big athletic department. Today we had a meeting with, the tennis coach was in there. Our new men's golf coach was in there, and it was fun hearing their ideas as well. I love being a part of that big family. Yeah. You can't beat that. You just can't beat it.
Awesome. All right. So hidden talent, any secret talents there that maybe not too many people know about you?
It used to be a hidden talent, probably. My first year in college, I played tennis and soccer. And nice. Yes. And I wasn't very good at tennis, and I knew I should stick with soccer after that. And it was too much. So I love tennis. It gave me a different perspective because you go to blame the mistake on somebody, you look to your right and your left, and there ain't anybody there except for you in tennis. So you kind of learn that it's on you, which was very different to play an individual sport and a team sport. Right. So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed and I played it both growing up. I played a ton of sports actually growing up, but I was thankful enough to be able to play both of those in college. But yeah, I played tennis my freshman year as well. Way better at soccer, way more passion for soccer. Knew I wanted to coach. So yeah, I guess that's one. Other than that, man, I don't have time for a whole lot of other stuff.
All right. So, if not a soccer coach, you would have been a what?
Airline pilot. I like flying. I like traveling.
Nice.
Yes.
So you look forward to all those recruiting trips, huh?
So
you look forward to all those recruiting trips? All those
I
flights,
look
all
forward
those
to them
flights.
when they're not back to back to back to back.
Yeah.
When I got married, I was definitely a workaholic. Long time ago, I beat that. When I got married, I had to promise my wife 3 things. 1, I would never sleep at the office again, which I did at times back in my single days, especially when you're just grinding, preseason,
Right.
etc.
Right.
2, we'd never have internet at our house, which I still don't have. And 3, in the out of season, if I've been gone weekend after weekend after weekend after weekend, I got to find a way to send an assistant to have one of those, and she'll pull me back in.
Right.
And now I'm good with that. Honestly, that was 20 years ago, but yeah, I enjoy the traveling. I enjoy it. It's fun. It does get tiresome when when they backed up DA and ECNL back to back, and I'd go to Australia at that same time. I mean, there was a time where I'd be 15 during that June spell. I was on the road 15 days in a row. You're tired, and you're waking up and you don't know what city you're in. I'll never forget. I get the North Dakota State job, and I flew to San Antonio to watch, and I made a point to go watch every person on the team and everybody that signed play, or at least meet with them. And I flew to San Antonio, met with someone, maybe watched them play. I don't remember. I think I went to Seattle, and then I think I was in either Edmonton or Calgary. And my assistant had gone to 2 different cities, and he was in the opposite city. We drove. We had lunch together, had dinner together. Slept in a hotel in the middle, and then the next morning, we woke up, and he had to fly back to train a group, that a camp or something we were doing. So he had to hit the road. And I'll never forget, we wake up and he's like, "What city are we in?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." And I remember sliding open the curtains, and I'm like, "Oh, we're in Edmonton." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he had to fly out that day, and I was still there recruiting. So,
Wow.
so those days get long. Or to be honest, when you
Right.
fly to Australia, it kicks your butt coming back.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. You sound like a military guy there. You have no idea what city you're waking up in. Yeah. Airline pilot. That's pretty awesome. I would not have guessed that. So I know for me, people used to always crack jokes, because I used to always tell them, it's like, hey, in the Air Force, only about 1% of the Air Force generally flies, right? And mine, I used to always crack jokes because I spent all my time jumping out of them, not not flying in them very long, So other than when we were making those long trips overseas, obviously. But yeah, it's that's pretty awesome though. That's a first.
no,
Definitely
crazy.
haven't had an airline pilot answer before. That's a first.
Now, here's a fun fact. My wife did 4 years in the Air Force. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah, so she's a vet. All 5, 200 pounds of her. So,
That's awesome.
um,
That's awesome.
which I always joke, like, what were you going to do if we went to war? Because she's tiny. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, be sure to thank her on our behalf. Thank her for her service. So we appreciate that. Last one for you, Coach. So this one's very deep, philosophical, reflective. This is the one I've been asking as of late to most coaches, is a lesson learned that resonates with you from the pandemic.
I think you always know these things as coaches, but I think it's really highlighted that everybody's going through something, and that's one thing that I've tried to instill, even with Rex as well, and with anybody that I touch, is everybody's going through something, and don't forget, I mean, none of it was hard on our student athletes. It really was. And man, shoot, if I get into it, it'll tear me up just thinking about it. The day that we took their season away, because my team wanted to play. My team wanted to play. We were one of the last conferences to cancel during the pandemic, and it was crushing to them. But I'll tell you a story. I was training, and I won't tell you the student athlete's name, but we were training somebody, and I mean, it was a young player on our team, and I kind of was riding her this practice because we'd been over this. And afterwards, I pull her aside and I say, "Listen," I said, I told her, I said, "Hey, I was on you too much today, and I'm sorry." And I told her that, and I said, "But we also got to go from A to B to C. We can't work on what we worked on last week and then revert back to it. You fixed it, and now we're going back there. Like, we can't do that your whole career." And she's like, "No problem, coach. No problem, coach." And I was like, no, it is. I apologize. I was on you too much today, and that's not fair to you. And I said, and I'll apologize in front of the whole team if you want me to. And she said, no. And I said, is something up? And she said, yeah. She said, last night my best friend died in a car accident. And I'll never forget that. And I was like, man, like, what was I doing?
Right.
And to be honest, I told her, I'm like, tell me. I'm like,
Yeah.
give me a chance, but she was a young freshman, didn't want to upset anything, or, and to this day, I'll never forget that. And I'll never forget that for my entire life. And I think that, that came out in the pandemic. Everybody was going through something. It touched everybody. Nobody got away from that unscathed, whether it was you personally or a family member or just somebody so I think that's something that, life is more important than a game, even though we, it's a children's game that adults, we make it complicated. Let's not get too far away from that. I want our student athletes to have fun. They're not trying to make a mistake if they make a mistake in a game. And that's one thing that I stress to people. Is don't forget, we're all on the same team. We wear the same logos with our own student athletes. So that's probably one thing I think that was highlighted. You always knew that as a coach, but it really hit home with me during those 2 years.
Yeah. And, I'm glad you mentioned that, because a little bit more of a somber note, but it actually came up in our last episode as well with, Coach Keaton from Texas Tech, about the importance of checking in on one another, and just kind of, you hit on it there, as far as sometimes you have people that have things going on that you just don't know about. And that was kind of recently highlighted with, I know, the news that rocked the college soccer world, right, with the passing of Katie Meyer, the Stanford goalkeeper, standout goalkeeper. So yeah, I'm very glad you mentioned that, because it's important. And I think in the day-to-day grind, as coaches, we know that, right? It's our people first, no matter what. But I think in the day-to-day grind, sometimes it's real easy to sometimes miss some of those signals, right? That might be right in front of us. So yeah, couldn't agree with you more. Well said, Coach. So,
well, try to have a relationship. I think the biggest thing too is try to have a relationship with your student athletes, that at least their friends can maybe tip you off on something, and you do this long enough, you're going to see it all from all different areas. Right. I think that's something that's helped me as well, is trying to develop even a better relationship with the captains, or we develop a leadership committee, which is even another group outside of captains that we kind of call our future captains. If we can have relationships with them, you can talk freely about, like, hey, so-and-so seems a little off. Can you guys check on her? And I think that goes a long ways. If you can develop that, you can't lead out of fear anymore, man. That's how it was done back in my day as a player, is the coach was the common enemy, which brought your team together. That's what we sat around complaining about. Not that still doesn't happen, but you've got to have those relationships that they know they can confide in you with those things that they may need help with.
Yeah, for sure. So he is Pete Cuadrado, the head women's soccer coach of the newest Division I program, the Tarleton State Texans. Sorry about that. Coach, this has been awesome. This has been great. Have loved having you on. Before we wrap up here and let you go, any final thoughts, anything you'd like to share with our listeners?
No, I appreciate you having me. I know we don't have the big stories of Tarleton yet, but they're coming, just make sure you bring us back once we have some good stories to share. I'd love to do it.
I'm telling you, there's going to be, now that you've been on the pod, there's going to be some hardware back there next time we have you on. I can feel it. So
hey, I'm in. I'm all about that. Let's do it.
All right, awesome. So yeah, this has been great. Wish you and your program, obviously your coaching staff, everybody there, your support staff, wishing you all the absolute best. Really excited to follow you guys closely and see how it goes year one, because it's that I'm always reminded, especially with a brand new program, right? I can only imagine how I think of the visual that comes to mind is that depiction of what people think success is like, right? That one straight vertical line versus what it really is this big messy line all over the place, kind of trending in the upward direction. So So yeah, it'll have its peaks, it'll have its valleys, but I have no doubt that you'll have them head in the right direction, Coach. So we really appreciate you. Wish you, your coaching staff, your program, the absolute best, and look forward to having you here again in the future.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And don't make fun of us if you see our jerseys with the little "Hello, my name is" for the first game, and we just fill them in there. So make it a little easier.
I'm going to be looking for that. So awesome. And again, for our listeners, thank you so much for your support. Again, you're the reason why we do it. Continue to do what you're doing, spreading the word about the podcast. Again, you can now find us on all the major podcast platforms, the audio version. All of our audio podcasts have been migrated over, going back to when we started in December of 2020 to now. So get out there, please like, rate, subscribe, give your reviews. We appreciate it. I know Coach Cuadrado he'll be a hardcore 50-50 podcast listener going forward, right? So I know we can count on him. So awesome. So again, listeners, thank you for our supporters, Coach Cuadrado, your staff. Good luck. Wish you the absolute best. And until the next time, keep downloading and keep listening. You've been listening to the 50-50 podcast, powered by College Promoters USA. Help us continue to grow by liking, rating, and subscribing on all major podcast platforms. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at 50_50pod, on Instagram at 50_50 podcast, as well as on YouTube at the 50_50 podcast. Until the next time, keep downloading and keep listening.